In the last video, we set up the basic UI for our photo wall component. The main idea is that inside of main.js, we're creating a photo wall instance, which passes in an array of data, an array of posts. That array of posts is mapped out to render out 3 photo instances. And each photo instance has a figure, and each figure is being modified with CSS by linking it to a class in our style sheet responsible for modifying its UI. Now, as promised, we'll start displaying images inside of each figure that's present in our photo wall. So simply create an image tag inside of the figure, image, and this image tag is going to have an attribute called source. Open up curly braces to declare a JavaScript expression, and source specifies the URL of the image that we want to display. The URL for each image will simply come from the image link in each post of the array that's being passed in through props. So post.imageLink. Let's make sure we got the name of the property right. Copy and paste it. We're good to go. And so let's just remember the grand scheme of things. We're creating a photo wall instance. The photo wall is simply the entire container, the entire div. And that photo wall div is passing in an array of posts. That array of posts is being iterated through. It's being mapped through to generate 3 photo component instances. And for each post that's generating a photo instance, the photo instance will pass that post down as props, such that the photo instance is defined to render out an image that comes from the post link that was just passed in. In total, giving us 3 images for each photo component instance that's being created from this array. And each image tag on top of an image is also going to have an alt attribute. Alt is going to equal JavaScript expression. The alt attribute is simply alternative text that will show up if your image fails to load. You can simply set it as post.description, the image description that's being passed in. Let's make sure we got the naming of the property right, and indeed we did. All right, so if our image fails to load, if we got the URL wrong for some reason, this description will show instead. Let's see what happens when we rerun our application. If I go to my app, and all right, we get our images from the respective image link, but everything is all messed up. The UI is not looking too good, which we can fix in our CSS file. So inside of our style sheet, we're going to make a class called photo. Class selector, photo, and whatever rule sets we specify for the class photo, we want it to apply to our image tag. So make sure to set the class name equal to the class that we just specified inside of our style sheet. Photo. And simply enough, whatever declarations, UI declarations that we specify in this class, it's going to apply to our image tag. And let's just put the image as well as our photo wall side by side, so that we can directly reflect the changes that are being written inside of our style sheet. And so the first problem is that each photo is going beyond the width of whatever we specified for the flex basis of the figure. The figure is enclosing the photo, and we want the photo to occupy a width equal to 100% of our figure's width, no more. And this looks good. However, remember that we placed a padding of 2 rems for the figure on every single side. 2 rems on the left, 2 rems on the right, and so to fix our width, we're going to have to give it extra width of 4 rems, like so, and make sure this is enclosed inside of a calc in order to specify a calculation. And now we simply have to fix the margins of our post by writing margin. And we'll fix the top margin by giving it a thickness of -2 rem. The right margin will have a thickness of 0 rems. The bottom margin will have a thickness of 0 rems as well, and the left margin will be -2 rems. All right, that looks better. Right below, we're going to have our caption. From the finished product, you can see that the figure also contains a caption. And that caption contains some text. And right below it, there is a button. So inside of our figure, we're going to declare a caption. Let me just maximize the width of this. We don't need the browser anymore. So inside of our figure, to display a caption format, write figure caption, opening tag, figure caption, closing tag, and the caption will simply contain a paragraph tag, denoted by the opening tag P, closing tag P. And you should remember what a paragraph tag is from the React intro. And the content of each caption will be the description of each post in the array provided to us by the component instance in the form of props, which will simply be post.description. And make sure this is enclosed by brackets in order for it to be a JavaScript expression, not just the text post.description. And finally, we have to place our remove button. So declare your button with button tags, button, closing tag button, and the button will be simply named remove. Let's go back and look at our UI. And we get both our caption as well as our button. Now this does not look as good as what we have over here, and for that reason we're going to use our CSS style sheet again. We'll start off by declaring a global style of font family sans serif. And as for the paragraph tag itself, we'll define a rule set to affect all paragraph tags such that they all have a font size of 1.6 rem. Let's also specify the amount of space above and below the element to be a line height of numerical value 1.5. Let's just put this side by side with our browser to see what's going on. And this is looking pretty good. Now for the remove button, let's go back and enclose it inside of a div. If I just go back to photo.js and collapse this, place it inside of a container, div, and closing tag div. And you can't really see a change, and that's because all we did was enclose it inside of an empty container. However, let's modify the div in our style sheet by declaring a class selector dot button container, and referencing this class as an attribute for our div. Class name is equal to the button container class selector we just declared. So whatever code that is written inside of our style sheet inside of the button container will reflect UI changes in our div. Let's also create another class selector to invoke UI changes for the button inside of our container, the remove button. Call the class selector dot remove button, and make sure to reference it as an attribute for our class name. So class name is equal to the remove button class selector we just declared. And so once again, whatever code is written here will reflect UI changes for our remove button. Let's start with the div. Give our div, our container, a display of flex to make its child element, the remove button that's inside of it, into a flex item. By doing so, we can align the flex item along its axis such that it's at the center by writing justify content center. For this to work, you must have display flex and thus make your button a flex item. As for the button itself, we'll give it a flex basis and initial width of 48% of the container's width and a color of red. A font size of about, let's say, 15 pixels. A border that's 2 pixels thick with a solid style, which would show a straight solid line. And that line, we want it to be a specific hex color of F2, 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 And finally, let's specify the amount of space above and below the element to be a line height of numerical value 2. Give it some padding on all sides of 5 pixels. All right, everything looks pretty good. Now we covered a lot in this video. Let's summarize. Inside of main.js, we have our main component, which renders both the photo wall instance and the title. From the photo wall instance, we're passing in an array as props and mapping over that array inside of the photo wall class definition. And for every element in the array that we map, we create a new instance of a photo component and return it inside of our photo wall render method. That way, the photo wall will have 3 photos, 3 photo instances. And each photo instance that's being rendered inside of our photo wall, it's passing in its respective post as props. The post that's currently being iterated through to create that photo component instance, that's what it's passing in as props. And according to the post that it passes in, that photo instance creates a figure. So in total, these 3 photo instances that are being generated, they're creating 3 figures. And each figure with an image containing a URL, according to the post that was passed in, as well as the post description as a caption. We also have a button enclosed inside of a div tag. We then modified the UI of each of our elements by linking them to the proper class in our style sheet. And now all of the components, the title, the photo wall, which contains all of our photo instances, all of it is combined inside of the main component and rendered to our screen through the DOM. In reference to the compositional model, the photo wall itself, the container, acts as the parent component for all of our photos, and the main component acts as the parent for the photo wall and the title. In the next video, we'll have a look at stateless functional components.